اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه قدره ومقداره العظيم والحمد لله. And then we're going to speak a little bit on the Prophet ﷺ as the perfect parent. We've been looking throughout Sha'ban, we've been looking at different aspects of his character and his nature. So today we're going to look a little bit at the Prophet ﷺ example as a parent. The first point that we'll make is that the Prophet ﷺ, his example is the highest example. It's exalted and it's lofty. So therefore, when we take him as an example, when we place him before our eyes as an example, we are aiming beyond the stars. Yeah, we're aiming for the very, very highest level that we can achieve in any area of life. Whether it be the Prophet ﷺ as a leader, whether it be the Prophet ﷺ as a husband, whether it be the Prophet ﷺ as a parent, as a speaker, as a military general, or any other form of that you want, as a trader, yeah, as a person of da'wah, as a person of sincerity, as a person of love of Allah. Every single possible department, the Prophet ﷺ reigns supreme. And therefore, his example is supreme. So when we look at him as a parent, it's the same, that we're going to see something extraordinary. And we have to recognize that the Prophet ﷺ, if we take him as the example, we will achieve more than we could ever hope to achieve. So this is the intention here, is that we should all make sincere intentions to take the Prophet ﷺ as our guide in every part of our life. There's no one better. There's no asdaq wa qa'il. There's no more truthful a speaker, and there's no better an example in any area of your life than the Prophet ﷺ. And the great Imam Al-Ghazali says that those who don't follow the Prophet ﷺ, it's either due to stupidity, a lack of understanding, a lack of intellect, or it's a weakness of iman. And that is in everything, in dunya and in deen. The Prophet ﷺ taught us, like, look at prophetic medicine. The Prophet ﷺ as a healer is supreme. The Prophet ﷺ in any dimension of life reigns supreme. So as a parent, let's have a look. So the first point, the primary point by the Prophet ﷺ's parenting approach is that it was based upon embodiment. And this is the only effective parenting approach, is embodiment. What does that mean? It means that he lived what he preached. Yeah, he led by example. He showed an example to his children. So everything he desired from his blessed children, he showed them by being that and then some. So this is the first point as parents. Unfortunately or fortunately, children, they pick up on hypocrisy very quickly. Very quickly. So you tell them to read the Quran, and then they're seeing you watching TV. So why don't you read a book, Dad? I don't see you reading. You're telling me to do my homework, telling me to read about Islam, read the Quran. I don't see you doing it. Yeah, so and that example is gonna reverberate. Children are very, very sharp. So the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us to embody what we want our children to become. And this is probably the most important aspect that we could have. Yeah. So if you want to have a real effective parenting approach, it begins with ourselves, which is sometimes a difficult thing, because improving ourselves is not easy. And we're in the month now of Sha'ban, the month of the Prophet ﷺ, so we can give some general advice that our teachers give. They say that we should live our lives in a state of remembrance of Allah. That whenever we're alone, whenever we have the opportunity, we should be remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a conscious heart, with a heart that's conscious, a heart that's aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That presence of heart, number one. Number two, they say whenever you interact with a human being, whenever you engage with another person, whether it be your parents, whether it be your children, yeah, whether it be a stranger, whether it be your neighbor, whether it be the poor and needy in your community, whether it be someone on a communal or society level, a leader, your work colleague, your school friend, whoever it might be, your extended family, those you know and those who you don't know. Whenever we engage with people, we attempt to emulate the Prophet ﷺ. So we imagine the Prophet ﷺ, how would he have behaved? We bring this to heart. what they call istihdar. Istihdar is to summon the presence of somebody. So you summon the presence of the Afdal al-Khalq, the Sayyidul Khalq, and you imagine him interacting and doing, and then you copy that, you mirror that, you mirror the way he was. So what we now do is, you with your children, you walk in, you with your children, how would the Prophet ﷺ have been? Would have been joyful, would have been playful, yeah, it would have been smiling. You imagine the Prophet ﷺ, how he would have interacted with the Batul, with Ruqayya, with Zainab, yeah, with Ibrahim, with Qasim, radiyallahu anhum jamiyan, and how would he, and then we emulate that. Yeah, you take this on board. So these two qualities this is how we're going to improve ourselves. Remember our Lord with a heart yearning to be with him. We speak directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout our day. Any opportunity we have, we make dhikr to Allah with a heart present. And secondly, we emulate the Prophet ﷺ in every human transaction that we do. This is self-improvement. This is parenting in a nutshell. Once we become improved, once we get better, then we'll see a natural impact within our children. So that really is the most important one. The second point that we'd say is that the Prophet ﷺ, his approach is prevention before cure. The Prophet ﷺ, as a parent, his approach was prevention before cure. What does that mean? That before the problems arise, he's taking steps to make sure they don't arise. So I'll give you an analogy. They give an analogy of 3 doctors. So what our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim mentioned in a parenting course once on raising children. He said there's 3 doctors. The first doctor, none of his patients get ill. None of his patients get ill. He prevents them from getting ill by giving them good advice, telling them to eat healthy, exercise. Yeah. Number 2, the second one, some of his patients get a little bit ill. So the first doctor, his patients never get ill. No one knows him. Yeah, he's just hidden in the background. The second doctor, his patients get ill and he gives them basic treatment. He'll give them some medicines and give them some pills, something to take. Slightly better, he's a bit more well known. The third one is like an open heart surgeon. Yeah, that his patients, he deals with patients when they're right on the edge, they're about to die, and he rescues them, he saves them. Now, who's the best doctor? The first one, the one who prevents before the disease emerges. And this is the Prophet ﷺ. As a parent, before the disease arises, he prevents it. Like during the time of Sayyidina Ali, one of them, he came to Sayyidina Ali and he said, my son, he's wild, he doesn't listen to me, he ignores me. So Sayyidina Ali says to him, he says, how were you when you was younger? He said, I used to neglect him when I was younger. Sayyidina Ali, like what do you expect? What do you want me to do now? The relationship wasn't established, and now you're reaping the sour fruits of that neglect. So this is the point. We prevent beforehand, before the problems can arise, we put a prevention in. Yeah, inshallah ta'ala. So this is very important. And we see this, the human being, every single child is born with immense potential. We have the ability to become beloved to Allah, to become from the awliya. We have the ability to become from the muqarrabun, those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If only we were nurtured, like they mentioned, one of them, Habib Ahmed Mashhur al-Haddad. I'll just give you one example of somebody who was nurtured, raised by a great woman. They say Habib Ahmed Mashhur al-Haddad, this is a man who, they say 300,000 people became Muslim through his efforts in Uganda and Kenya, East Africa, and other places in the world. 300,000. But look at his upbringing. He says, he goes, my blessed mother, she fed me milk. He says, for 2 years, the first 2 years of my life, I heard nothing except the Quran. I heard no other sound except my mother reciting the Quran. She ensured I heard nothing else. Nothing other than the recitation of the first 2 years. And then we don't wonder. Of course, he's then going to go on to become Habib Ahmed Mashhur al-Haddad. This is the reason he had the Quran implanted within him. Completely enveloped his heart before he was even conscious. Like Maria Montessori, this great thinker from from Italy, the 19th century. She talks about the child. She says the child, the first 6 years is the absorbent mind. Yeah, that the child absorbs the environment. The first 3 years is unconscious, subconscious. Then the next 3 years is conscious. So from 0 to 3, the child is absorbing on a subconscious level. And then from 3 to 6, the child is absorbing on a conscious level. So this blessed child, Anwar, went on to become this great Imam. For 2 years, subconsciously, he's absorbing the Quran in its entirety. She's reciting how many khatams, how many completions did she do in those 2 years? SubhanAllah. Yeah, how many completions would she have done? All he heard was the Quran for 2 years. All he heard was the Quran. I mean, what kind of an individual is that going to produce? What kind of character? What kind of refinement? What kind of etiquette and adab is that going to produce where you have a child for 2 years, all he hears is the Quran? This is prevention before cure. You don't need to heal him. He's healing others. He becomes the healer of his time. He becomes the healer of his time because he's the Quran. He has the Quran embodied within him, and then he becomes the Quran in motion, like his blessed grandfather, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yeah, this is the power, and this is why we have amazing, amazing abilities as parents, but we also have amazing responsibility. It's a heavy responsibility because you are nurturing an individual who can transform the whole world, one individual. If you nurture that individual properly, that boy or that girl. So we have this. So therefore, our job really, in this sense, is just to protect our children. It's just to protect our children because they have genius within them. Their fitrah is elevated. They have a soul that elevates them beyond this worldly realm. They are incredible individuals. Every child is incredible and beautiful and perfect. We just have to protect their eyes, protect their ears, and protect their stomach. In other words, we make sure that everything they see is khair. We make sure everything they hear is khair. And we make sure everything that they have, that we place into their mouth is khair. Like Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jailani, his mother raised him. And what a mother she was. Yeah, mashallah, she was a known Arifa. She was a known saint in her own right. And she raised him and he said, my mother protected me from any disliked thing. Anything forget about haram, anything disliked, she wouldn't allow any of that to enter into his state. And therefore, mashallah, we see the results. Yeah. So this is just some general points. Then if you can look at some more specific examples, how was the Prophet ﷺ with children? So the first point that we make is the Prophet ﷺ, he inspired through love. Yeah, so if we have a child, there's two ways we can make that child listen to us, isn't there? There's 2 ways. Number 1 is fear. Number 2 is love. The Prophet ﷺ, he always chose the approach of love and mercy. The Prophet ﷺ, when he moved to Medina, there was a lady, a very intelligent lady, who sent her son to the house of the Prophet ﷺ. He was 10 years old. Her son was called Sayyidina Anas bin Malik. Sayyidina Anas bin Malik, one of the greatest human beings to have ever lived on the face of the earth. One of the greatest human beings to have ever lived is Sayyidina Anas bin Malik. Now, Sayyidina Anas bin Malik is sent at the age of 10 to serve in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, to be raised by the Afdal al-Khalq ﷺ. And he says, for 10 years I served him. The Prophet ﷺ, from 10 to 20, he goes, he never once said to me, uff, which is the least thing you say to tell someone off. He said, if I did something, he never said, why did you do that thing? If I didn't do something, he never said, why didn't you do that thing? He said, by Allah, I never met anybody with a gentler disposition, a gentler character, a gentler way, a more merciful way than the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, this is the beauty with which they mentioned once a famous incident. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he walks in, he tells Sayyidina Anas to do something. Sayyidina Anas says, no, just straight up like that, no. Because this is children, when they're 10 or 11, boys, 10 or 11, they're very, very difficult. As some of us know. Yeah, some of us maybe were like that ourselves. 10 very difficult. She just says no. What does the Prophet ﷺ do? He smiled and he left the room. He smiled and he left the room. Like they say in modern psychology, they call this disarming. He's disarming the child because the child wants a reaction. He wants a reaction. He's not going to give him that satisfaction. He smiled and he left the room. Yeah, another time he tells Sayyidina Anas, he says, go and do, I need you to go to the market, do this errand for me, do this job for me. He says, yeah. He goes and he sees some children playing. He just starts playing with the kids. I mean, he's a kid, he's playing with other kids. Yeah, and then he goes, he's playing, but then he feels the presence of somebody behind him. And then his eyes are covered like this. And he goes, I smelled the scent of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, I smelled the scent of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I knew it was him. Again, turned and he said, did you do that thing I told you to? Because I'm just going right now. Yeah, I'm on my way now. Yes, because this is the point. Because they loved him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they didn't want to disappoint him. So Anas didn't want to disappoint him because he loved, and that's how he motivated him. So our approach when we're trying to discipline our children, it should always be what they call positive discipline. What does that mean? It means you say to your child, we have to be firm. There's times where we have to be firm. The Prophet ﷺ, he's teaching us balance. But the way what do we say? We say, okay, the punishment, you're not going to go to the park today. Yeah, the punishment is to take away the incentive rather than to give out a punishment. Because again, what's the secret of the Prophet ﷺ in his life? He never said no. He never ever said no. So instead of saying, don't do that, like this, instead of saying, don't run, say walk slowly. The amr bil ma'ruf, yeah, command you to good come before forbidding evil. Instead of saying, don't shout, just say, talk quiet. And you lower your voice. Naturally, the child will lower his or her voice as well. Yeah, so we reinforce with positive discipline, telling them what to do. Like they mentioned, one of the Sahabi says, I was a young boy, because I was a young boy, I was sat with the Prophet ﷺ, and he said we were eating, and he said my hand was wandering in the plate. Yeah, he's grabbing a bit from there, bit from there, bit from there, like children do. And Prophet ﷺ looks at him, he says, Ya ghulam, oh young boy, Sammillah, yeah, say Bismillah, yeah, and then he says, eat with your right hand, and eat that which is nearest to you. Eat what is nearest to you. So again, he told him what to do. He didn't come with something else. He just told him, this is what you need to do, Ya Ghulam. This is what you need to do. Yeah. So he informed positively. So he had this. And then the final point that we want to make is a statement from Sayyidina Ali, which really summarizes the prophetic approach beautifully. So the first thing that he says, Sayyidina Ali, he's giving us instructions on how do we reach children. He says, play with your children. Play with your children for 7 years. It doesn't, people misquote this. They say that Imam Ali said, let your children play for 7 years. That's true. We should let them play for 7 years. That's why really person speaking school, forget about it. Like up until the age of 6, 7, they shouldn't be in, maybe 6 maximum to begin with. 5, they shouldn't be in school. They should be engaged in constructive play. They should be playing and learning through play. Yeah, up until, I couldn't really care less what the authorities actually. Why? Because look at Finland. Finland is the best education system in the world. It's always in the top 3 every year. Oftentimes it's number 1. They start teaching their children at 7. They start teaching them at 7. So people want to say, well, if you want to look at a Western model, they're saying 7. You want to look at the ancient Greeks, they said 7. You want to look at the Christians, said 7. You want to look at the Muslims, they said 7. They all think 7 is the age at which you begin formal education of the child. So he says, play with your children. Play with them for 7 years. The Prophet ﷺ, you know what he used to do? Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. This is Muhammad ﷺ, the Afdal Khalqillah, the supreme leader of the universe. ﷺ. Yeah. And what does he do? He sees the Hassan, he says, giddy up. He goes on all fours. I'm a horse. Giddy up. Get on my back. Get on my back. Then he's like, he's taking one. Oh, we're going to fall. This is the Prophet ﷺ. He's behaving in the most beautiful of ways to raise his grandchildren. Yeah. So he played with them. And this is the key. Let me tell you a secret. Yeah. It was something that is obvious, but it's become a secret in our age. You cannot discipline your children until you've played with them. You have to play with them first. You have to develop a proper, deep relationship, they have to know that you care about what they care about, not what you care about. You have to go to their level. Show that you care about what they care about. You love what they love. You want what they want. If you do that, then those children will love you. And then when you discipline them in later age, they'll accept it. They won't mean, oh, dad's too harsh. I'm going to rebel. I'm going to listen to mum's, going crazy. No, they'll accept because they love you, and the relationship has been developed. It's developed in the first 7 years by being with them and playing with them, such that closeness and love and mahabba develops. Yeah, so these are the first 7 years. And unfortunately for us, it takes time. It takes time. There's no way around this. Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to give a magic wand for people and say it's so easy. It takes time. Children need time, and they don't really need anything else. They don't need toys. And I'd recommend a book for everyone. This should be wajib for any parent or any non-parent as well. Should be wajib reading in our day and age. It's called Evolution's End. Evolution's End by Joseph Chilton Pierce. Yeah, in there he talks about toys and the destructive nature of toys. How toys actually destroy the imagination of the child and are harmful. The child doesn't need toys. He doesn't need your money. He just needs your time. She just needs your time. She just needs to be with you. That's it. Yeah, and your undivided attention. Not like this. Not like yeah, that's true. Yeah, undivided attention. You took this away when you're with your child. Look at the stats now. They're saying in America, the average parent gives 20 minutes a week. That's all. 20 minutes a week of undivided attention to their child. In the UK, it's about 45 minutes. It should be an hour, 2 hours a day. At least should be like 2 hours a day of undivided attention for each child. People get 45 minutes a week, and then they're wondering why there's a crisis and why children are all over the place. So that's the first 7 years. Okay, then after that, the next 7 years is what? Is discipline them. Yeah, discipline them for 7 years. Now, because that's positive discipline. Yeah, positive, but I can't emphasize enough the first 7 years. It's based on that. This is why when you go to traditional societies, there's no generational gap. We just came from one called Tanim and Hadramaut in Yemen. There's no generation. You see the 7-year-old sat in the masjid between Maghrib and Isha, reciting the Quran with his father, with his elder brother. They're all there. And in the middle of the night as well, the 7-year-old child, he completes the Quran khatam in a week. He's 7, he's completed Quran khatam in a week. Like he might not be able to read himself, but he's there in the gathering, so everyone else is reading and he's trying to read along. When he gets to 10, 11, he's doing it himself. He knows the Quran, he's reading it. He reads 3 juz a night. At night, he gets a 1 hour at the depths of the night and reads 3 juz. And then between Maghrib and Isha, he reads a juz and a half. He completes his Quran khatam every week. So there's same as the elders. There's no generational gap because they established the relationship when they were young. And then you discipline them. Because children obviously need boundaries. These need to be boundaries of light. And they need to be boundaries that are explained to them. This, again, a child at the age of 5, 4, 3 even, they are very intelligent. You can explain things, they'll understand. I promise you, I've done this with my own children, it works. You tell them, that's racism, or that's unfair, that's being oppressive, that's not a good thing to do. Explain to them, okay, they'll get it. And they listen to you at that age. When they get to teenagers, they might not listen. So when they're all going to listen, and tell them, this is the way the world is. Yeah, treat them in an intelligent way. Treat your children intelligently and they'll respond intelligently. Treat them like they're just little objects under your power, and then they're going to behave in an incorrect manner. Yeah, so there's a direct relationship between this. Yeah, so we discipline our children for 7 years, and then so this is 7 to 14. Then he says 14 to 21. He says mentor them, mentor or befriend your children. So here the job's been done. Yeah, they've grown into adults now. Yeah, really your job's done by the age of 14 because they're adults Islamically. Yeah, so what you then do is, obviously it isn't done because 7, then what do you do? Friendship, support, concern. You are concerned with what's going on in their lives. Yeah, and it's friendship and support, it's mentoring then at that age. Yeah, now you become an example and a role model for them, and by that, if you've done your job properly, by that stage they open with you. What does that mean? It means they'll tell you everything that's going on in their lives. That's the relationship that you want. You want them to be able to tell you everything that's going on. because if they're going to hide things from you, it's a problem. Yeah, because you can't then treat whatever's going on because you don't know, because there wasn't an openness in the first place. Yeah, so these are all this is just like a general introduction to this topic. It's a very important topic. Inshallah, the Faqir, we're hoping in 2 weeks, the 10th of April, the 10th, we're going to do a 2-day seminar on parenting, inshallah, for people. For those who are interested, we can put in an email address for people to be able to register or to be able to get more information. And we're also hoping to have Habib Tahir Al-Attas, Hafidahullah, inshallah, he's going to come and this is the man who mastered the Quran from a young age. He's a traditional scholar. He mastered the Quran from a young age, and then the last 20 years, he spent specializing in child development. He's actually doing a PhD at the moment in child development and in parenting. This is his area. He's mastered, really, the Faqir, I've sat with him many occasions when we went to Riyadh, mashallah, and he's mastered the modern approach of the modern age. Really has. He's mastered modern knowledge and he's mastered traditional knowledge. So he's a very special individual. He's a very, very special individual. So inshallah, I'll be hoping to have him to come and conduct a few, like he'll make a few points as well. He'll talk about a few different topics, but then also we'll have a live Q&A session with him, inshallah, to finish the course. We'll have half an hour, an hour, where inshallah the parents can come and they can ask problems, they can ask questions. And he's very, very deep and detailed in his knowledge, and he's very broad in his knowledge. So he'll be able to give you recommendations of books to read in English. Yeah, he knows, you know, like the English approach, what's going on in the Western world, latest developments, and he's also aware, of course, of the traditional Islamic approach. So he's an individual, mashallah, who's really excelled in this area. This is his area: parenting, child development. So alhamdulillah, he's someone who, mashallah, we're really fortunate to be able to have somebody like that. He spent a lot of time in Saudi Arabia. He's been all over the world, and he's spoken. He's been to the Emirates. He's also an education expert. He has a number of schools under him, mashallah, and he's really developed great curricula as well for madaris, for schools, like really marrying between the modern and the ancient approach, and really producing what he calls tajdeed, like a real revival, a true revival. The Faqir asked him, like, what is there a parenting book that you recommend, from the Islamic? He said, we need to write one. I like the answer. He said, no, we need to write one. There isn't anything that's actually suitable. We need to write one. Yeah, so that's, mashallah, is good. There's somebody who's grappling, because we're in a modern situation. He's grappling with modern problems, and he's offering meaningful solutions that are rooted in true Islam, authentic traditional Islam, instead of just, well, I think this and my nafs thought this. This is that, mashallah, is rooted in a deep knowledge and a profound understanding and a wisdom that he's derived from the traditional world, and also that he's been able to take from the modern world as well. So it's an invaluable resource. And he's also open, like, if people want to send questions even before the parenting, we can ask, but ideally we can gather people together for this course, and then we can go through some points, talk about some general points about raising children, points to that matter, and then we can call upon an expert like that to give more specific and particular advice. Inshallah, we ask Allah for tawfiq. Inshallah, if you are interested, please do email in laddertosuccessful@gmail.com, inshallah ta'ala, and we can give you more information on the course and how it's going to be laid out, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah for tawfiq to allow our children to be raised upon khair, yeah, and for us to fulfill the trust, because it's a weighty trust. Our children are not our children. They're not our children. They're Allah's. They belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've been given them to look after them. They've been entrusted with us. This is a thing, like our teacher, Sheikh Burhan, Hafidhullah, was an expert also in parenting. He said that this one realization changed his whole approach. He said, once I realized that my children are not my children, because once I understood that point and I realized they're not mine, I'm looking after them. They're a trust that's been given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once I realized that point, because it changed my whole approach on parenting. They're not yours. They belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your job is to make sure that you raise them in the best way and that you preserve them from everything, and you honor them to the extent that the parent is asked first. Yeah, the parent is going to be asked about how he fulfilled the responsibilities towards his child before the child is asked, how are you with the parent? Parent's going to be asked first. What environment did you put him into? What did you teach him? How did you protect him from harm? Did he even know the harm? Like Sayyidina Ibrahim, the famous statement Sayyidina Ibrahim, he says that was given to him from the Suhaf of Ibrahim alayhi salam, from the revelation that was given to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, the second greatest prophet after the Afdal al-Khalq, that he says what? He says that from the Suhaf that was given, he says it's incumbent, it's wajib, it's obligatory for an individual, it's obligatory for a man to know the age that he's living in. It's obligatory for a man to know the age that he is living in. We have to know the age we're living in. We have to know the dangers out there. And really we don't. Like this thing here, for example, this thing. Yeah, this thing that's destroying adults. It's destroying adults. Americans now, they're saying they spend 8 hours a day on entertainment on their phone, entertainment. The average person, he does 2,167 swipes every day. 2,167. This is a very dangerous thing. And they put that in the hands of a child. SubhanAllah, put them in front of a TV screen. You don't know the damage those cathode rays are doing on the brain. Yeah, to put them in front of a computer screen, which nobody does, by the way. You know, these Silicon Valley guys, these guys who make these computers, they ban their children from computer screens up until the age of 11. They say it's prohibited, it's haram for them. They say it's prohibited up until the age of 11 for a child to look upon a screen. Up until the age of, they have, go look it up yourself. Look at the school, they got the Waldorf School in Silicon Valley, where all of these top executives, all of these computer masterminds, they send their children to a school where the school rules, the rules of the school say you cannot watch any computer screens up until the age of 11. None, because they know the damage that it does. They make the things and they spread them to the, this is shaitanic. Yeah, these are human devils, because they know it's destroyed. They don't want for their own children, but they're happy to destroy millions of other children. Yeah, they know that this is damaging to the brain, it's damaging to intellectual development, it's damaging to character. Yeah, to put your child in front of a screen. For short periods, it's okay, but even they don't even take that risk. They don't take that risk. Before the age of 7, it's criminal by consensus. For the age of 7, it damages the brain. We don't have children before screens before the age of 7. After 7, an hour a day is fine. Yeah, it's not going to damage their brain. But what I mean, they don't do that. They wouldn't risk it. But at the age of 11, there's nothing whatsoever. That's just the damage of the technology. I'm not talking about content here. Content now, the average 7-year-old in the UK has seen foul content. Foul content by the time he's 7. Foul content according to who? According to their standards, what they consider to be obscene and foul. No, what about what we consider is, subhanAllah, it's much, much wider and much higher. What they consider to be foul content is being seen. You ask Allah for tawfiq, you ask Allah for safety and security, and for us to become knowledgeable, inshallah. Really, we need to become knowledgeable, we need to learn about these things, we need to understand what's happened here. We brought children into the world. We have children under our care. It's a heavy, weighty responsibility. We ask Allah to allow us to take it seriously, and for it to become a means of us attaining paradise. That they drag us into the highest ranks of paradise. They just take us, just by virtue of being their parents. We give them crowns of light, and they take us. Yeah, the child was the Hafidhul Quran. It doesn't just mean they memorize the Quran, it means they preserve the rule, the boundaries of Allah. They preserve the Quran, they know the meanings of the Quran. That's what a real Hafiz is. That's what a real Hafiz is. There's somebody who preserved the Quran in his life and in his heart. Those kind of individuals, the parents are given crowns of light to wear, and these parents are honored, they're elevated, they enter into ranks of paradise they would never have achieved by their own free will. But they achieve it through what? They achieve it through their children, through raising children. One final example, just on Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali, his father, the father of Imam al-Ghazali was not a scholar. Yeah, but he loved the gatherings of the scholars. He loved their gatherings, and he made intentions to raise his children on khair. And he had Imam Ahmad and Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. They became the great scholars, and now every single deed of Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali is on his scale. Every single deed. I mean, that's ghibta, and that's positive jealousy. Yeah, what that was us. Imagine your son's Imam al-Ghazali. And your son can be Imam Ghazali, he can become Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Malik, Ahmad bin Hanbal, all of them. Our children can become great Imams. They really can. We have to allow them to fulfill their potential and don't give them to the dunya. Really don't. We've got more than enough doctors, engineers, solicitors, and we've got plenty of them. We need scholars. We need awliya. We need doctors that cure hearts, that heal hearts. Saintly, purified figures, and we need legal minds that can grapple. We need great legal scholars, and that starts from a young age. You can't become like the faqih. I mean, it's too late for me. Yeah, I'm not going to become no faqih. It takes 20 years minimum to get anywhere in the science of fiqh. 20 years minimum to learn usul, to learn fiqh, like the old books, and then also modern context and understanding the modern way, to be able to know all four madhahib. So then you can understand the broader context of Islamic law. So you can give fatwa to people in specific situations. It's a vast undertaking, and it requires us to nurture our children from a young age. From a young age. We ask Allah for tawfiq, afwan, for all this overgoing on my time. Inshallah, we'd like to pass over to Maulana Ishad, inshallah, to edify us with some pearls from the Shama'il, from the character traits of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.